Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game. With every conversation, we hope to inspire as many as possible to keep on Dungeon Mastering.
And I'm one of your hosts, DM Neal, aka Jote Moniac. And today we have some guests of the network, and Derek has seen them in real life just recently, but you'll hear more about that in the episode because we have Thomas from I Cast Fireball and Ned from Improv Tabletop coming on to give us some very practical exercises and ideas about how to increase the improv for ourselves as those who are running the game as well as our players. To get everyone more involved and kind of get the creative juices flowing before, during, and after games. But before that, I just want to let you all know again that both Derek and I will be at a Catacon this year. I will be running a couple games that you could sign up for once the events are open, as well as we will be doing Geek Wars again this year. We'll be doing a live DMB episode on Saturday night for the first time ever, and I will be on a horror panel because this is the 13th at Catacon, a convention to die for. 2D4, so there will be 2D4, to die for. But you should go. Sign up if you can. Check it out. Support in any way you can, because Michael and the RPG Academy put blood, sweat, and tears into making the Catacon the best it can be, and that is why we continually support. But with that out of the way, let's head to the meat.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meat?
The plate meat's back on the menu, boys.
And today on the show, we are super excited to have Thomas and Ned. Thomas and Ned are DMs and GMs. Thomas has been running I Cast Fireball, an actual play show, for over 4 years now. And Ned is the GM of Improv Tabletop, a show that's also been running for more than 4 years now. Thomas and Ned have also been performing, whether it's improv or tabletop games, with each other for almost a decade. Welcome to the show, Thomas and Ned.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here.
2 for the price of 1.
Yes. And for those unfamiliar with my voice, I am Thomas.
And I am Ned.
Yeah, that's a good delineation to make. Thank you, Thomas. Well, before we jump into everything else, I wanted to chat with you two about the event that we just met up at. So tell us just like a 30-second smidgen about how fun it was for your I Cast Fireball live meetup.
Oh, yeah. So the ICF Meetup 2025, we just wrapped that 3 days ago now. It was August 9th, 2025, for those listening to this in the future. It was fantastic. It was our first live meetup, in-person meetup in Utah, in Utah County. And it was great. We had about 40 people show up, some from Utah, some from out of state. People flew in from California and drove down from Idaho. Ned drove down from Idaho as well to be a part of it. But yeah, we had most of the cast there, and we were able to run a couple one-shots for Josh, who's also the DM for Titans of Altera, been on Sneak Attack. Myself, Ned, Jacob were there. It was just an incredible experience. It was so nice to be able to see everybody react to playing with each other and really taking forward the idea of good storytelling and supporting each other that we try to promote on both of our podcasts, and do it in a live setting with strangers they've never met before.
Yeah, I thought it was a very affirming thing for the community that can be built around this stuff. Mm-hmm. For those of us who are producing podcasts, it can feel, it can be a bit of a lonely thing sometimes, feeling like you're shouting into a void, as it were. But to see real people who had never met each other before coming together around tables, around this thing that they all love together, it was really heartwarming, and it was very cool. Many more people there than I ever expected we would have show up. Just a grand old time overall.
And thank you, Thomas, for inviting me to come run a one-shot. It was kind of a stopgap, as there was some dead time, and there were going to be a few folks without something to do. So Thomas said, come run something. And I said, okay.
Oh, thank you for running the one shot. We desperately needed someone to help manage the crowd a little bit.
Yeah, it was a great time. I had a good group. One of the players even said, "Hey, wait, I do recognize your show." So I got the experience of meeting a person who knew me from the show too.
There you go.
The first time. So that was a ton of fun. You mentioned also, Thomas, that Josh Lorimer, the DM of Titans of Altera and also a player from Sneak Attack, is in iCast Fireball as a cast member for your season 2. So longtime listeners of the show will recognize him as a returning guest on this show as well. So definitely worth a look, both of these shows, if you guys get a chance. So let's jump into that part now. Can you both tell us just a little bit about yourselves, maybe about your work, your shows, and anything else that you think people would be interested about?
Yeah, so we came up with these ideas to start our podcasts pretty well simultaneously, I feel like. We'd both been wanting to do them for a while. We'd been on stage together in full-on theatrical productions. We did, I think, 8 semesters of improv together.
Yes.
We graduated, and it was like, well, I don't want to have to stop performing with my friends. I don't want to have to stop doing improv. And also, I want to find more ways to play more games with my friends. And so both of us came up with these ideas. Thomas with the idea to do a more traditional D&D 5e sort of thing, and me with my whack job idea of making one that feels a bit more like an improv show than a traditional RPG show. And we got together and just started working on these both around the same time. And it's been a very fulfilling thing ever since then. And, we really went into it with not so much the intention, like the hope that, man, maybe someday this will be really big and exciting and cool, but the intention of just, we want to tell stories. And I think that's really sustained us a lot throughout the years.
It was clear that, at least from my perspective, the thing that wrapped me so much into RPGs, even from a young age playing video games, was the good storytelling. And RPGs are a great vehicle for excellent storytelling, whether you write it out as a DM and have your own world. But improv specifically really kind of helped me latch onto that, and including some other like famous references, like listening to Matthew Mercer and seeing like how he completely can transform a world into your mind. Then also listening to Sneak Attack, an actual podcast, play podcast, and seeing that back and forth. And I don't think we'll ever take it down. I hope we don't. But Ned, when creating our website for iCast Fireball, he put in there that the reason why I started this podcast was to ensure that I could get through an entire campaign from start to finish without my players crapping out halfway through. That's truly, honestly, why I started to do iCast Fireball, because I wanted that story. I wanted that completion of from start to finish of everybody having their character arc. And if people listened, that's great, but I wanted to trap my play. No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to be able to ensure that we had those expectations of like, look, this is worthwhile doing. And this is one external way to ensure that we feel it's worthwhile to keep doing. But yeah, the story is really the bottom line here.
That's awesome. Also, I'm here. I forgot. I haven't talked this whole time. It doesn't matter.
I know.
I'm just having a great time. I was just being a guest. I was just being a listener.
Everybody
don't worry
knew that
about it.
Neal was here, right? Everybody knew that.
Don't worry
They
about
do.
it. But it did give me this moment to think about how connecting podcasts can be and how lonely every single aspect of a podcast has the chance to be. In the sense that like recording, editing, even being a listener. You said shouting into the void, but the number of people that like listen, but they're the only person they know that might listen to a podcast and just scream in their car because they're excited, angry, all these things. So it is really awesome that you had the opportunity for people to come and connect with others that have found whatever brought them together, that they were willing to drive and connect with others in real life.
Yeah. It's funny. 2 of the people that were in my game had just started listening last week.
No way.
I don't know if they got roped in from friends or whatever, but it was really funny. Like one guy's like, yeah, I just started listening Monday and now I'm 30 episodes in. And I was like, wow, you got a lot of free time. He said he listens to it at work. So he's got some time. But the other guy
that
was
is
like
called a
2
boring
episodes
job.
in. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway.
So this is also why when you listen to a lot of podcasts, you'll hear a lot from the Michigan area, specifically the Grand Rapids, Michigan area, because there's a lot of industry. So a lot of people that are working there are working in factories. And so a lot of them listen to podcasts. So I listen to a wide array of podcasts, like financial podcasts, sports podcasts, TTRPG podcasts, all these things. And inevitably someone's like, oh, I'm calling in from Grand Rapids. Mitch and Chris, who started this podcast, are both from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm like, what is going on? And then I just started asking because I'm like, I need to get to the bottom of this. And so a lot of people that have jobs that are specifically in factories or industry end up listening to a ton of podcasts.
Makes sense.
So,
Makes sense.
And that's how you get through 30 entire episodes in 1 week. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wow, you're not kidding. I just looked at her stats, and Michigan is like triple up the amount of the surrounding states in the United States for listeners. That's crazy.
Need to start advertising for the auto workers union or something. Anyway, obviously you have your shows, but is there anything else that you two are currently working on that you're excited about that you want to tell us about?
Yes. In addition to our main feed audio only podcast, which is going through a 5e campaign, a swashbuckling campaign that we have going right now, we are in preps to do a Stormlight Archive TTRPG campaign right now. When it was released digitally in July, me and about half the cast just squealed in delight, jumped around, and did a little dance. And we're going to be starting recording. And by the time this releases, we should have either the first and second episode released on our YouTube channel, because it'll be a visual podcast that we'll be releasing at that point, free to the public.
Yeah, and getting a little bit of cast crossover with Improv Tabletop as well. So,
yes, that's true.
Yeah, even more bleed over between, Thomas and I are always on each other's podcasts, so it's fun to cross the wires even more.
Yes.
There is a lot of crossover. It's like its own Cosmere. Anyway, I am very excited to watch this Stormlight show. I've been reading the books. I've been geeking out with Thomas. Thomas and I actually work together now after I convinced him to come work at the same company I do. So he and I spend a lot of time at lunch talking about Brandon Sanderson stuff or just TTRPG in general. So I'm very excited to see how this goes.
Perfect. So that leads us to our surprise question. This one was a little more elaborate. So this is one of the few times that Derek and I are not going to be surprised by the other person. But we thought it would be interesting. What is your favorite warm-up for your cast members? And let's do it. Whatever
it's got to be Hotspot,
Let's
right?
do it. Oh,
yeah.
You just wait. Oh my gosh. This warm-up is a fan favorite of mine and Jacob in the cast, and everybody else humors me because I'm the DM, I suppose. They feel they have to throw me a bone every once in a while so they can bully me relentlessly while we record. This one is called Hotspot. And Hotspot is the idea. You're actually supposed to play it in person, but we found that it can work online. At least we force it to work. Hotspot is an improv game to where the idea is you're all in a circle, and one person has to go to the middle of the circle and just start singing a song.
Oh, no, I knew it was.
But the idea is that they are burning alive while they're singing, and you, as a cast member, don't want them to die, and so you want to push them out as quickly as possible. And the only way to do that is to go into the center of the circle and to sing a song that maybe has some loose connections to what they were singing before. And then you keep going and going and going. There's no consequence if you can't get them out within like 3 to 5 seconds, but you should feel bad about yourself if you can't get them out within 3 to 5 seconds.
I remember you describing this to me and me being like, that sounds really hard. So of course this is the one you choose and are going to.
It's super fun. We're a singing podcast. Most of us, we just sing random ditties throughout our recording anyway. So we almost have to do it almost every single time to get most of the singing out of the way.
Yeah, if we don't do Hotspot before one of our recordings, Mickey has to edit out a lot of random humming and
a lot of humming.
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like Jacob is the one who bursts into song most during the episodes, but I don't know.
He absolutely does.
Okay.
Him, and then me, and then nobody else.
I think I've heard Josh sing once or twice, but that seems like that seems like the pattern. Okay, well, I mean, I guess it was going to happen eventually. I've got my performance on Thursday, so this is a great warm-up.
Hey,
for the warm-up.
there you go.
Booyah, trial by fire.
Oh,
Literally.
Well done.
So, for example, one person might start singing RESPECT, and then someone else has to think of a song that has something to do with respect or with a little bit.
It's just some loose connection. Is it the style of music? Is it the type? Is it the message that's being said? So
imagine that scene at the end of the first Pitch Perfect movie, but they're on fire.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
like
thing.
there might be different ways to go through the path. Like when I hear RESPECT, my brain goes to songs that spell or list letters.
Ooh.
So then I might go to the A, B, C, D, Can I Bring My Friend T, that old Beatles song there. And then Thomas might have a completely different song come to his mind and take it in a different
That
direction.
ish is bananas.
Sit and drink penny loyalty.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I'm ready.
We're already doing it.
Let's
See,
do
there
it.
we go.
Okay, here we go. Who's going to kick it off? It's got to be one of you two because I'm.
Thomas is going to kick it off. Go.
There's only one thing to do. 3 words.
You only
for
get
you.
one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better lose yourself in the music the moment you want it.
I can swallow a bottle of alcohol and then I'll feel like Godzilla, but hit the deck like the card dealer. My whole squad's in here walking around the party, a cross between a zombie apocalypse
Sweet
and
dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I'll travel the world and the 7 seas.
There once was a ship that took to sea, and the name of the ship was the Billy of Tea. Some song about
This
it
hurts
down
my
and blow
brain.
ye bully boys blow.
I can't do this at all.
Soon may the Wellermen come to sing of sugar and tea and rum.
For just one time I would take the Northwest Passage.
Ah, yes.
To find the hand of Franklin.
Oh, you
reaching.
take the high road and I'll take the low road and we'll...
When the summertime is over and the trees are sweetly blooming and the
Oh,
wild
Danny
mouse...
boy, and the pipes are calling from
On
Glen
the
to-
rocky road to Dublin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hump the hare and turn her down
I
the rocky
love
road.
Rocky Road. Put it in a cup and I'm spooning it, baby. I love.
Wait,
Rocky
Thomas, I have to stop this. What are you singing?
It's
the-
a Weird Al version.
Perfect.
The Weird
Yes.
Al version. I love Rocky Road.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, we had to stop this at some point, I suppose.
Yeah, that's good. Probably.
Yeah.
Usually
I
when
don't
we're...
feel bad that I was super confused because I have to edit this.
There you go.
Yeah, usually when we're playing, we need to have like a button we can press. Be like, okay, the exercise is over, so we'll just start singing "Stairway to Heaven" or "Photograph."
Or yeah, Photograph by Neil
Oh,
Sack.
y'all-
Those are 2 songs that are like, okay, if those are sung, we're done.
Mhm.
Photograph.
Oh, that is a muscle I could work towards, but that is not a muscle I have. That is so good though.
Mhm. But you know,
What's interesting about that one is that there's a communal aspect to it that even not being involved, I felt involved. Because there's always something about music.
Yes.
They like knowing songs and like having emotions and memories attached to them. I had a great time. I was confused for all of it, but I enjoyed it.
I mean, that's really kind of like we have a couple, a cast member, or there's a cast member who has an off night pretty much and doesn't always get the songs out or just doesn't come to their brain. And yet they're still able to come along with us. And it still helps warm their brain up because they can see the connections that we make as well. Mm-hmm. So there is that community aspect to it, to where everybody's being lifted up as opposed to a scene where you're just watching it or something to that extent.
Awesome.
That was fun. Yeah, good luck editing that, Neal. Hopefully I didn't sing too loud. I wasn't watching my levels, but
that's all right. Oh, the audio tracks are separate. We'll be fine.
Okay, well, gentlemen, we've mentioned it a few times as we've been chatting through our intro here, but let's dive into the episode proper now. We would love to chat with you both about improvisation in tabletop role-playing games, and I want to cover both, you know, what it means to improvise as a DM/GM and how you can kind of flex those muscles and get good at that. But I'd also love to chat about getting your players more involved in improvisation, helping them feel more comfortable with it, getting them into it, especially, you know, newer players or people who just aren't used to that kind of thinking. It can definitely be a learning curve, but you both will have the experience to guide the way, hopefully. So yeah, let's start with, you know, what is improvisation, you know, just like the quick 30,000 foot view, and then why is it so pivotal to a good tabletop role-playing game?
Well, I think improvisation is something that we do every single day, right? I mean, that's the cheap answer, but it's the real answer. And I wanted to state that first because there's a a lot of trueness or truth to that statement of like every single day, we can't plan out every moment of our day. Therefore, we have to react appropriately, or we have to react in a way that we feel is appropriate or that can help the scene or our life. For instance, at work, if you've got a presentation or a conversation with your boss and it's completely out of the blue, you then have to find ways to navigate that conversation given the context of the situation is all. So really, but from a theater perspective, Ned, how would you define improv?
Of all of the different sort of artistic forms I've experienced, it's maybe the purest form of collaborative creation that I've taken part in. It's so immediate. You start with a blank space, an empty stage, and you find just one little point of something concrete. Somebody, says, "Oh, it sure is hot out here, digging trenches all day." And now the next people have just like this one little bit of truth that's been established in the scene, and they can come in and add something to it. And the thing that I think makes this so especially important in a TTRPG kind of space is TTRPGs, the vast majority of them inherently are a collaborative, team-based experience. You're all working together towards a common goal. You don't often know how you're going to try and solve a certain problem along the way, but when you have the willingness to be able to bring all of your ideas together, to trust that your friends are moving forward in a direction that's best for the whole group, that's when the magic really starts to come out.
Yeah, absolutely. TTRPGs, the most memorable experiences that people have are when everyone is working towards telling either a common goal or they're all supporting each other in a way to tell a story. It doesn't have to be through what we might see on YouTube or Twitch of heavy role playing. It could just be like, oh, my character is going to react in this way, right? And I think that's a big confusion that people have when it comes to improvisation as well. Yes, there is a very theatrical element to it, but really it's just finding ways to support each other with situations that are not pre-planned and working together towards that common goal, which the common goal hopefully is telling a great story and supporting one another.
So I hate when this happens, and it happened again. So shout out to you. So sometimes on here, I have to be forced to grapple with new ideas, and sometimes I don't want to, but it's okay. So I've quickly realized in the short amount of time that we've had this conversation that in the earliest days of D&D, what the rules were meant to do is to put guardrails on imagination and improvisation. Because before that, that's what everyone was doing. You were playing, cops and robbers or whatever iteration thereof. And you were putting rules, you were codifying what it meant to do that. And so that's what that was. And eventually those rules became so cumbersome that you have this shift, this sea change where everyone is leaning away from that to go more towards improvisation and go more back into that imaginative play that we in some way have lost, especially when you have new players that come from the video game world where everything is codified. You have guardrails because the system can only do what the system can do, and there's no way to do anything else other than what it will allow. And you oftentimes have people that are baffled by the idea that, well, yeah, you can do whatever you want. And that is crippling sometimes, depending on the person and their ability to sit down at the table. You're like, no, thank you. Please tell me what I can do. And can I push the A button or the B button? Which one should I push right now? And it's like, no, that's not what we're looking for because of how much further this game can take you when you're not looking to push A or B. Everything is available to you. So yeah, my brain broke.
Yeah, it's one of the kind of counterintuitive things about creativity that the creative process often thrives when you do put some restriction on it. And this is something that was really, really drilled into my head when I first started taking my graphic design classes in college. Like my teacher would give us a project and instead of just saying design whatever, they're like, if I just tell a brand new typography student to design whatever, they're never going to make anything good. Right. So here is what you're trying to accomplish with this project. And in many ways, the RPG system that you choose to play with your friends is those kind of constraints that you're putting on the creative process. And in that sense, it comes down to like, what are you trying to get from the experience? When we were putting together iCast Fireball, we said, well, we all really love playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, so obviously this is the game we're going to play. With Improv Tabletop, I wanted to find a game that would put enough rules into play that it would still feel like we were playing an RPG and it wouldn't be just full on make believe and pretend and all that. So we settled on a game called Fate Accelerated, which Will Wheaton on the Geek and Sundry Tabletop episode that they played Fate in, he once said that it's like the gold standard of getting the rules out of the way so that the story can be the thing. That's what drew me towards Fate as opposed to D&D 5e for this very improv heavy show, because I knew we want to really focus more so on the story in this podcast, but we do still want to play a game on top of that. And so, when you're trying to decide, we have an entire episode that we did on iCast Fireball years and years ago about why do we even need rules? I can't remember in all that we said in that episode, but it's a balance. How much restriction do you want put on your creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. And Neal, I've encountered that as well as a dungeon master. And even when I started to play, I was a very heavy video gamer and I needed those guardrails up, and I just couldn't see past the restrictions and needing and wanting restrictions. It wasn't until I had a DM that showed me, wait a minute, and kind of went where I was and then could show me what could actually, what was possible, and sort of led me along the path to understanding what truly is possible. And then when I became a DM, a forever DM, 10 years ago now, I can't tell you the number of first-time players who I'm you come up to a town and you see 2 cards at the entrance. And so how do you approach? And all of them went, all right, we go stealth. We're going to get our weapons out. I'm dipping this in poison. And then the one veteran DM player's I just go up and talk to them. How about that? And, but it's the idea of there's such this codified mentality of well, if I can do anything, well, then I'm going to try and do whatever I can at that point. So yeah, going where your players are and sort of helping them along their journey, if it's their first time, I think is really, at least it was instrumental to me to be able to incorporate a lot of improv into my tabletop games.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely kind of the end goal, is to get them more comfortable with it. In your experiences, how have you seen your improv training improve your ability to run games? And then, why is it such a crucial component of a good DM or GM to be able to improvise, to change things on the fly, to make the game the most fun possible?
Yeah, improv really helps with just handling the unpredictability that comes with playing RPGs. Because one of my favorite analogies for improv is that when you're doing improv, you're not playing chess, you're playing ping pong. In chess, the people who are best at the game can plan out turns and turns and turns and turns ahead and know exactly what direction they want to move the story in. But in improv, if somebody, you're playing ping pong, you hit the ball towards the other person, and as soon as that ball connects with their paddle, you have no idea where it's going to go. You have to be watching. You have to be aware in that moment. And so one of the most important things, I think, for a GM to cultivate is a willingness to let go of your preconceived ideas of where you think the story should go, and instead be aware of where the story is going in the moment. There's this quote that I've seen many, many times on the internet about how no amount of DM prep can handle contact with the players. They're always going to find some crazy way to subvert your expectations. And so, from the improv side, an example that was in our improv book that we studied in class, it's called Truth in Comedy. If you imagine somebody comes walking into an empty stage holding their hand up like they're carrying a box of pizzas, they might have the intention that these are boxes of pizzas, but then somebody else comes in and says, I see you've delivered the manhole covers. Is that maybe the most logical way that they could have taken it? Not necessarily, but how many of you, isn't that just the way to describe what players do with the worlds that we create? So you come in as the GM with this stack of pizza boxes, but then as soon as your players say, oh, you brought the manhole covers, the way that you as a GM are going to build trust and make your players feel like you are supporting their decisions is to immediately say, nope, these are manhole covers. In fact, you are correct. And now that you on the fly have to puts a little bit of extra strain on you to figure out how to make that work with the story. But in the end, it builds that trust between player and DM and allows you both to feel like you have more freedom to kind of play within that space.
I think most oftentimes than not, when players throw a wrench into the quote-unquote dungeon master's plan or game master's plan, most of the time they're not trying to do it maliciously. They really are just trying to react honestly. And I have found that times, in fact, I just experienced it this past weekend at our ICF meetup. They weren't trying to thwart my plans. It was just what they were feeling in the moment, and it made sense in the moment. And when you go and you meet your players and say, okay, this is different than what I planned, but they are contributing to the story. I am now going to receive their ping pong return, and I'm going to ping it back to them. It builds that trust that Ned was talking about and that excitement, and that's what makes games memorable at that point. That's when they feel like they are living their character, that their choices matter at that point.
I think it's the payoff. I think that, and it doesn't need to be immediate. I mean, there are immediate smaller payoffs, like you're saying, that if you say manhole cover and you say yes, and that there is an immediacy that you can have. But I think those longer payoffs get players to do this improv a little bit more. That it's not just the back and forth, the literal split second. I had to look this up because I was remembering I've seen the breakdown of what it means to hit an MLB pitch, and basically a pitch from the mound at roughly 90 miles an hour. You have about 0.4 seconds from the time it leaves the pitcher's hand to connecting with the bat. But also that you only get the middle bit to make a decision. So you have basically like 0.2 seconds to decide everything about that pitch and what you're needing to do with the swing. Exact same with the ping pong analogy. So you do have these immediate like responses that can start to build that trust. But I really think that those big payoffs are the ones that will have them coming back doing the little bits time and time again. So when you have the king of the sewers, whatever, let's go with the analogy. And like, it's what we're doing right now. Like why are all these manhole covers even here? Who's been stealing them? Like, and then the king of the sewers is frustrated. I even turned it on myself. I thought it was a villain, and now it's just the person who's mad. And then they're working for him. Sure. And so like, as long as you're starting to double down on these kind of things that they're presenting to you, because that's the other thing, is you're looking at the things that they're trying to inject into this story. And that's where I think a lot of people can get tripped up, because there's so much to keep track of as well, which I follow down on it all the time. So like I've always, not always, never, not always. I have tried to be better about taking notes recently, because I have caught myself being bad about taking notes and letting some things that players have offered me slip through the cracks.
I think a perfect example of what you just said, Neal, was anybody who watches Dimension 20, I believe, when who was it, Emily? She thought that there was like a character that was so suspicious in some early seasons, and Brennan, I think he's publicly said, I never intended that to happen, but it kept coming up every once in a while that I could, as you said, Neal, it's what my players were seeking. And so that was me saying yes to them seeking that. And then after taking notes, finding a satisfying way to bring that in, right? And to being like, okay, I see what you're bringing in. I will start crafting my story around this and improving the overarching story to suit what the players are requesting through their questions and through their own role playing.
And a foundational principle here that we've been illustrating that probably bears some touching on. I guess I just kind of assume that everybody's heard of it at this point, but the core rule of improv is to say yes and. The idea being that when somebody gives you a gift within improv, you acknowledge it, you say, yes, this is the truth of our situation now, and then you build upon it. So I brought in this idea of these aren't pizzas, these are manhole covers. And then Neal, instantly his brain starts going, okay, if these are manhole covers, then why are they manhole covers? He accepts he says yes and accepts manhole covers, and that says, And the reason these are manhole covers is because there is a king of the sewers that we did not even know about before. And this is how we build this thing together. And just like the fact that that was, I think, Neal, the first thing that came up to your brain was to say, okay, how do we justify this? I think is a good sign of an improvisational instinct that you have. And that's really cool.
One of the ones that came to mind, and I've brought it up recently, is, and you can go in depth even in the moment, as long as you start to have trust, as long as you build that trust and those layers start to build over and over on each other. Because I've played with people that I don't know very well. And so like these things don't necessarily happen as much. They happen small because that's the level of trust that we have, because I need to be cautious about what I do and don't know with the player, because I don't know what they like, even just on the base level. Let's just stop there. That's all I need to say. I don't know what they do and don't like about playing this game. That's not true with some people that I've played with for a really long time or have been friends for a really long time. And I can just trust that I can go a lot deeper. So I was playing an Undermountain game and everyone was monsters and somebody was a sprite or a pixie. And the people they were fighting were just humans. Mid combat, he starts yelling at me because one of the characters were female. And I start yelling at him.
Like one of the humans?
Yeah, one of the humans.
Okay.
And so I start yelling at him and we get into this huge argument as scorned lovers. Basically, neither of us had been able to decide which world that we were willing to live in for the other, where I wasn't willing to be small and he wasn't willing to be big. And so it was just never going to work out.
Oh, I thought you meant like actual
players
fighting.
to players.
You're saying improv.
No.
Okay.
Improv.
Sorry.
And so he's just yelling at me, like in character. Sorry. And so he's yelling at me.
I'm caught up now.
Yeah. And the other players afterwards are like, oh, so did you guys set that all up? And I was like, oh, no, not at all. I have no idea why he started yelling at me. But I was like, this is sure. That sounds great. I'll just yell back at you then. And then had it circle back up and come up again at another part in the story that made a lot of sense to me to have that same character. And initially I was going to have all of them die. Because why not? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, because it was going to be a one shot kind of thing or like a couple shot kind of thing. But it made so much more sense for her to survive and get away now that there were stakes involved. There's not a good payoff for me if she doesn't survive this battle or he doesn't let her go or all of these things. And then like 2 sessions later, she shows back up. And so from literally just out of the blue, he points and says a name and starts yelling. Then like multiple scenes later, like this huge payoff, and like a resolution kind of thing.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And I love that you showed that willingness to allow this other person to have that amount of creative control within that scene. Because as DMs, it's so often like, well, you have the final absolute say in what happens within the world. Being willing to, here's a fun little secret that will help reduce your workload a little bit as a DM. You don't have to come up with all the cool ideas. You can let your players come up with some of the cool ideas too. And it makes them even more invested in the world that you're playing in because they had a part in helping to create it.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot more buy-in in my games since I have done more like pre-game work, like session 0 type stuff, or like, think about your backstory and answer these questions to give me ideas about what to seed the game with that you're going to be interested in. And also I've found a lot more buy-in in my games when I give everyone chances to chime in real time and say, okay, well, what is this? Or, why is it this way? Or who is this person and who are they to you? And why is it important? And then, yeah, they're writing the game for you, which is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about being able to yes and, which is a super valuable tool. We've talked about meeting people where they're at, trusting the reality that people have built and taking that on and building off of it ourselves. So these are all really useful tips for GMs, DMs that are working on improvising better in their games. How about getting your players more comfortable with improvisation themselves? I feel like the one we just talked about, the example we talked about, is a great one about asking them to fill in blanks. But yeah, what are some ways that you two have found helpful in engaging people more where they're at and getting them more comfortable with these kinds of things, with this way of thinking?
I definitely have been spoiled a lot because of my players on the podcast that we have. Everybody has that performance or that improv background, but having recently started running games for people I've never met, it can be a challenge, and it can be players can be paralyzed with decision. Right. The only thing that I've been able to really find that's helped me in my situations is I've already mentioned it before, but going where they are. Right, like meeting them to where they are at, and trying to walk that path of improv with them. So sometimes that means some instances I'm like, you guys don't have to improv. Maybe you just tell me what your character does. And then they go, okay, I'm going to do that. And then I'm like, okay, you saying your character does this. And then maybe I do a little improv as their character to model essentially that behavior, right? Like, hey, we can't go through a whole class. We're not going to talk about improv theory, but I'll model a little bit of that, right? Like, and then I'll verify and be like, do you feel that's like what your character would say? And then they could say yes or no. And then sometimes, most of the time when they've said no, they've taken that same voice, that persona, and then they've said, no, this is what my character would say. And then they say it as their character. And then they've already begun that journey.
I think one thing that's very helpful for encouraging people to step out more is to show interest in their characters, in the story, in the person of their character, and also even in the abilities of their character. An experience that I had from running that event this past week is I was the only weirdo who wasn't running D&D. I was running a game called Dungeon World. And of the 12 players I had over the course of that day, none of them had played Dungeon World before. A couple of them had listened to some of the one-shots that I've done on Improv Tabletop with it. And, well, to try and help them feel more comfortable within the space, whenever one of them brought up something on their character sheet, I would get really excited for them. And it wasn't even necessarily a conscious thing that I was doing. It was just like, oh yes, this person is showing that they're engaging with the system. They're looking at their character sheet. And then I match that energy and say, yes, this is a really, really cool thing that your character can do. Let's explore the different possibilities that this opens up for you in this game. Dungeon World being a much more free-form, much more improv sort of heavy version of D&D. And, it took a while, certainly, but once the players started to see each other starting to open up a little bit and seeing me as the GM responding and accepting those gifts that they were bringing and being excited for them, the energy just went up and up and up. And the people who were maybe a bit more hesitant at first were like, oh, maybe I can bring something cool into this situation and add to the story. And it really is kind of a virtuous cycle in that way. When you start by being a fan of your players' characters, which, isn't a new term for many of us, I'm sure. When you are a fan of your players' characters, you want them to succeed, you want them to have their cool moments, your energy is going to be infectious for the rest of the group, and it's going to spread.
And I want to compliment Ned too, because he did an excellent job at this event, but just generally whenever he GMs, of setting the tone of energy, right? I think people do really good when they have something to model after. So if you as the GM and DM are really comfortable with role-playing, even if you're the only one, or doing voices or having that energy, then you are saying to your players, you have permission to do this as well. You are welcome to join me in this. I'm not going to force it, but you are welcome to come along with this. And then they're able to keep modeling that over and over and over.
Yeah, I love setting the tone with a goofy voice right out of the gate, or a serious voice, but a goofy accent, whatever it might be, especially with people I don't know. Because if I can make that first character memorable and kind of show them that I'm ready for that level of role play, then I feel like it definitely helps. In all the con games and the event games I've done, that seems to usually set the tone in a way that gives everybody else permission to join in.
The one that always stands out to me is having them describe like their move or their spells or things like that. It helps give them ownership over their own player, but over their own character. But one of the things that I quickly realized is there's diminishing returns on this idea, because there's only so many times that a person's going to describe their magic missile. That's just true. But one of the ones that I picked up from Celeste that helps you as the DM a ton is having them give a special trait of some kind to the enemies, so that I don't just have to do Goblin 1, 2, 3, and 4. I could do Goblin with a limp. I could do one ear. I could do left eye. So like just having them do things like that, because it helps differentiate, because I lose track if I do the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing, or I have to like almost like draw the map out on the paper that I have behind the screen. And even then it's like, well, they moved, and I'm not going to sit here and like redraw it every time. So it's like, yeah, sure, I think that one's dead. On occasion, this happens. And I'm like, yeah, you killed it. Sure, the hit points happened. But if I have something that actually separates them from each other, then it's also easier. It also starts to allow for different conversations when you're having the battle. Because if something interesting happens when they're fighting, their ability to describe what happened has better touch points. Because it's not that I just killed the Goblin 3, it's that I did something to one ear. It's that I did something, or, my magic missile, blew up that goblin with that special trait that I chose. And so like, I realized like that's the one that can keep giving like battle after battle, because you can always have something that describes it. This is also like important though. Like if you have something that's there, definitely use it. Like if there's already something in a pre-written module that is like a really defining feature of the monster, be sure to like give that in your initial description. But if there's not, or again, if there's a bunch of the same type of monster, it's super helpful for you as the DM to keep track of things, as well as giving them ownership over, sure, whatever. It's one arm. I don't care. It can have one arm. That's fine. It's still going to do the same amount of damage and take the same amount of hits. It has one arm. Fantastic.
That's making me think like if you really, really trust your players and want to kind of take it even further, one thing that we did in a recent campaign on Improv Tabletop was typically I just play all of the NPCs, but I started offering Thomas and Heather and Caleb, our other two players, the opportunity to play as some of the NPCs that were being introduced, and giving them opportunities to be the bad guys. And they, based on the trust that we've developed, acting in good faith, they played up the bad guys and really leaned into that role. So if your players, if you think they might be into something like that, shoot dang, that could be a really fun way to keep them very involved.
During a summer game, my DM said, hey, do you want to play a guy who, fakes his own death and then he's the evil villain at the end? And it was super fun. And I got to deliver the monologue as him, on the last session, even though I was playing a new character at that point. And it's like, I still got this goofy smile plastered on my face thinking about how fun that was. So that's a great tip right there. Nothing like monologuing.
Yeah.
So, we usually like to give our listeners homework in the form of like stuff to watch or stuff to read. But I think that we have a unique opportunity to ask you about more of these improv warm-up games that you like to do before sessions. Maybe give us like a couple each of some simple, easy to explain ones that people could try to do before they jump into their games. These are obviously good for you all because you're performing and you're recording your sessions, but I think that it helps everybody else get into a good headspace as well. I've heard the classics of like sitting around the campfire and everyone has to kind of tell a story from their character's backstory or something, but these are more just about the people themselves kind of getting into an improv headspace, right?
Yeah, for sure. Before listing any specific games, I'll pay it forward a little bit. There's a book called Improv for Gamers by Karen Twelves. It's published by Evil Hat Productions. It is exactly what it says on the tin. It is an improv manual that is specifically geared towards bringing improv into your tabletop RPG sessions. So that's one I would recommend. Even if you want to check out like just an actual improv theory book itself, even divorced from gaming. The book I mentioned earlier, Truth in Comedy by Sharna Halpern and Del Close, it's not a big book at all. It's very manageable, and it's got a lot of recognizable people in it. Like there's anecdotes in there from Chris Farley and Mike Myers. So it's a very enjoyable read in that way.
And you can even stop like almost halfway through because then it talks about heralds, right?
Yeah.
So,
if you want to get into some really nerdy improv stuff, you can read the section about heralds, but you don't have to.
Now, is a herald where you're all playing the same characters, or is it just like one theme and you're doing a bunch of random scenes in it?
Oh boy. A herald is a tripod of an improv scene.
Uh-huh.
You start with 3 separate scenes that are far apart, and you rotate through them over and over again.
Okay.
And slowly but surely, they all start to meet in the center until these 3 completely disparate stories, you eventually realize, oh, they're all connected in some way to each other.
So, like, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Ned, have you watched the Ben Schwartz and Friends or like Schwartz and Middleditch stuff on Netflix?
A couple pieces here and there.
I'm assuming that's what they're doing ish. Like they do one about a wedding and they're doing like a couple of different vignettes from different people who are going to this wedding. And then eventually like the last scene is the ceremony and like they're bringing in all of the different characters. That sounds like what they're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
It makes me think of an elaborate version of that game where 2 people say a word and then they're like, okay, we're going to say another word. And then we just keep saying words until we say the same word. But instead, we're going to add a third person and we're just going to do it that way.
That would be torture.
Yeah, it does sound like
3
torture
different
now, doesn't
people.
it?
No,
Uh-huh.
I feel like that's a game you've talked about playing before, huh, Thomas? Anyway.
It is. And that
Sorry for
third
the aside.
person is a really nice element. Maybe we'll have to introduce that to our warm-ups, Ned.
Maybe.
That sounds...
Yeah, that's one of the games that we often warm up with is Mind Meld. You get 2 people together, they each say a word, and then you have another person who counts them down 3, 2, 1, and then you're just trying to get to the point where both players are saying exactly the same word at the same time. And it can be frustrating at times.
I am horrible at this game. The idea is not to let too much time pass between instances of saying your word and to not be like, okay, lemon, what goes with lemon? And this and that. It's just the idea is to get in the same headspace as each other.
That can be hard when your thinking patterns are very different than other people's thinking.
Exactly. But if we're all in what's called a group mind, which we talk about a lot in improv, that group mind effect helps us all be on the same path and support each other.
Yeah. So sorry about the Herald aside. Thomas, what are some suggestions from you or ideas for games?
Yeah. So for, I think, an easy one, which literally anybody can do, and it's just to be like, we are all going to say yes to each other. It's used a lot. We used to do this before class. Every single time we had improv class, it's just called Category 7. And it's very simple. The only thing we just support what everybody says. So I might say something to Ned and say, Ned, give me 7 types of ice cream you wish existed.
And then, I just start rattling off, the purpose of the exercise is to just get you in the mode of saying stuff, getting stuff out of your mouth and into the space. So I'd be like 7 types of ice cream that I wish existed. Baja Blast ice cream.
Mm.
And
Right.
then everybody else in the group goes 1. And then you keep going, sardine ice cream. And maybe I, Ned, don't actually want sardine ice cream to exist, but the point of the exercise is just that I am keeping up with this theme and getting stuff out there until I've gotten through all 7.
Yeah. Speed and support are the whole points of that game. And yeah, like I said, anybody can do it because there's no wrong answers. And as long as you're just like saying stuff, you are doing it. And then, of course, you also want to get a little bit of movement in there to try and get like some energy up. But that's
physical
one of the
activity helps.
physical activity. And that's a really fast one that people can do. If everybody at your table's like, hey, energy's a little low, let's do this. And sometimes people say really off the wall stuff and you get laughing, and then already you've got a fun connection and you're ready to jump into it.
I've played this, but with 5 things. I think they call it 5 things even. And I've played a version where one person says like a category and then everyone has to go around and say one thing. Like if you said, terrible or versions of ice cream you wish existed, then each of us would have one turn to say a flavor that sounds really good. And then the next person makes up the category and you go around quickly. I think that's a great example of just like you said, Ned, thinking about or not thinking too hard, just getting stuff out there and trying to use that creative part of your brain.
Yeah, it really creates a more low stakes environment as well, which I really enjoy.
Right. There's no wrong answers. It's just like sardine ice cream sounds atrocious.
That
Another
it does.
Dumb aside. There's an ice cream shop in my hometown called Walrus Ice Cream, and they have a joke flavor every week. And I guarantee you they've done sardine ones, but the ones that I've had were like barbecue where it was like chunks of hot dog and they'd mixed mustard and ketchup into the ice cream, And then there was the cold one where they had chunks of like Hall's cough drops in there.
Ew.
And then the worst one I ever had was dog food, for sure, with real bits of dog food mixed in. Anyway.
Well, I guess there's a market for it because they keep doing it.
I mean, yeah, it's just one of those you get a dumb sample spoon for, just to get people to come in. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Yeah. Any other simple games from either of you that you feel like people would benefit from?
I think those are the ones that are easy to launch at a table.
Yeah.
Every other one, I think that we do a couple others, but I feel like those ones are really geared towards getting that group mind aspect, which you might not need to do at a normal everyday TTRPG table. But Ned, are we forgetting anything like obvious ones other than Hotspot? Obviously,
I think one other that I would mention, if you want to kind of flex the storytelling muscle specifically, is a game called One Word Story. And
yes,
the way that this one works is you just go around the group. Each person says one word at a time, and you start building the story together. This is another really good one for flexing the muscle of being willing to drop preconceived notions, because the person right in front of you can say a single word that will completely destroy any idea that you might have had about where the story's going.
And it's sometimes my favorite thing to do during that warm-up.
Yes. And it's fun to just lean into the absurdity of that sometimes. Just, kind of throwing people for a loop and laughing at the crazy stuff that comes out.
That's a good one, too. I like it.
Yeah, the two things that, like super quick, is if you want to watch Whose Line Is It Anyways? That's a lot of really good improv. A lot of these, like some of these suggestions. The other thing that I would suggest, like if you're really trying to dive deep, if you want to watch current SNL and old SNL, just to get a vibe on like what things look like over time, because some people are like, oh, SNL's not funny anymore. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. It should develop, and you probably shouldn't find it funny anymore because it's not meant for you. That's how the show works. Just like you probably aren't going to find SNL from the 80s funny unless it was meant for you. That's the whole point of the show. Hate to break it to everybody, but
also there were a ton of duds in the 80s too. People just don't remember that there were a lot of bad ones.
How dare you,
all the really good ones.
The Driving Cat is the best thing you've ever seen, and I will accept no arguments to the contrary.
I think Dropout TV has a bunch of good stuff on there too. They have Make Some Noise, which is a full improv game.
If you don't mind adult content, for sure, explicit content, I should say.
That's true.
They are a really good example of making improv more mainstream and seeing it in action, for sure.
It's a very curated show. Like the prompts are very specific. So, but yes, that's a good one as well. And Dropout has tons of good tabletop content too. So worth your time if you have a few dollars to spend every month.
Yeah, and I'll just toss in a plug for Very Important People, which is one of Dropout shows that is, I mean, Thomas and I, when we were doing improv classes, we would do a very similar exercise where you just bring in a random, totally insane character and have an interview with them to learn more about them. And
it's wild.
It's amazing. You got to check it out.
I like that they go with the costumes and everything too. Really,
the costumes makes it a little bit more pure improv, right? Like, because they have to justify everything that they didn't decide.
Yeah. Yeah. What a good time. Well, thank you so much, Ned and Thomas, for coming on the Dungeon Master's Block, chatting about improv. I hope that everyone listening has gotten at least a few ideas to implement at their table. I know I have. But before we wrap up, Ned and Thomas, in that order, give us your socials. Where can people find you? What's your show schedule look like? All that good stuff.
Oh man, social media. I would encourage that you don't find me on social media. You don't need another reason to hop down the scrolling hole.
Fair.
If you really want to find the stuff, Improv Tabletop is our handle on everything that we currently have it on. Those accounts have not been monitored for longer than I care to think of. But they exist, and if you want to check out some of our clips, there is a bit of a backlog there. As far as the release schedule for Improv Tabletop, we release to the public every other week on Wednesday mornings. We currently have a Bump in the Dark campaign going on. It's like Monster of the Week, but using the Blades in the Dark system, and it takes place in a scout camp where everything is made out of Legos. And the great thing about playing in a world where everything's made out of Legos is you have a lot of flexibility about random stuff you can bring into the story.
Just like Lego Star Wars, Chewbacca is allowed to rip everyone's arms off for children.
Yep, we have had players lose arms in this campaign.
It's rated E for everyone, and Chewbacca goes over and rips their arms off because that's what Wookiees do, but it's okay because they're Lego people.
I mean,
it's perfect.
People are getting shot and sliced with laser swords too, but they're just Legos.
Yeah, so everything's fine.
Everything's fine. It's encouraged.
Everything is awesome.
You get bits, right? Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm Thomas, DM of iCast Fireball. You can look at us at our socials at iCast Fireball 20. And yeah, we do have our cast member Mickey putting on our socials whatever she finds amusing D&D related every once in a while. But we also release weekly on Wednesdays because Mickey, our editor, is fantastic and sacrifices so much to make sure these episodes go out. We also have, in addition to our socials, we have a Patreon, where on that Patreon we have a ton of bonus content where you can see us doing these improv warm-ups that we post online. And also you can look at a bonus campaign we've got going on, which is audio, which is visual. That one's called Fizzband, where we take a shot at co-DMing a campaign in the world of Tyranny of Dragons. And of course, our YouTube channel, where we're going to be releasing the Stormlight Archive adventure actual play, probably the schedule for that. You'll just have to go look for details on what that release schedule is going to be.
Yep, we haven't figured it out yet, and this is our way of making sure that we do.
Nice. Well, perfect. I can say with the utmost confidence, yes, and we will have to have you back on.
Well, I believe I can say yes, and just let me know when.
Yes, that would be wonderful. I agree.
We just want to thank both Thomas and Ned for coming on, spending some time with us, getting Derrick to sing. I was very confused through most of that because I was not prepared. I do not have those muscles ready. I'm more of a verbal improv, not singing improv. But as always, if you have improv tools and exercises that you've been using that you want to share with us, go ahead and email us at dungeonmastersblock@gmail.com. And of course, if you head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, you can always leave a rating and review, sprinkle some stars on there, and get us in front of some more people. And of course, if you head over to social media, good on you. And you can usually find us at DMS_block. That's DM's block. And as always, we are a proud member of the Block Party Podcast Network, where you can check out other shows like Dungeons and Dragons and Daughters, The Bad Venture Club, and more. We just want to take a minute to thank you for listening to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing gods, killing characters, and lowering the egos of everyone else at the table. I'm DM Neal. Good night, good luck, and keep on dungeon mastering.
It's not inspiration, it's not wisdom, and it's bad advice.
If you really want your players to improv, after every session, just erase something off their character sheet. What's my strength score? I don't know. Improvise.
Goodbye.